The fog rolled in thick over Havenport, Maine, that October evening in 2024, blanketing the sleepy coastal town in a gray shroud that seemed to swallow sound itself. The air was heavy, carrying the briny scent of the Atlantic and a chill that clung to your bones. Havenport wasn't the kind of place where things happened. Folks here liked their routines, their lobster traps, their quiet evenings at the Rusty Anchor, the only bar in town. But that night, something shifted, like the tide turning too fast, and the town would never be the same. Elliot Harper, a wiry man in his early 30s with a mop of dark hair and eyes that always seemed to be searching for something, stood at the edge of the pier, staring into the mist. He'd moved to Havenport 2 years ago, running from a past he didn't talk about, though the locals had their theories: failed musician, jilted lover, maybe even something darker. He worked odd jobs, fixing boats mostly, and kept to himself. But tonight, he wasn't alone. Beside him stood Clara Monroe, the town's librarian, a woman whose sharp wit and quiet beauty had a way of making people nervous. Her auburn hair was tucked under a knit cap, and her breath puffed out in little clouds as she spoke. "You sure about this, Elliot?" she asked, her voice low, almost lost in the lapping of waves against the pilings. "Once we do this, there's no going back." Elliot didn't look at her. His hands were stuffed deep in the pockets of his worn jacket, and his jaw was tight. "You saw what I saw, Clara. We can't just let it go. Not after what happened to Lila." Lila Vaughn had been Havenport's golden girl, 22, bright-eyed, and set to leave for college in Boston when she vanished 3 months ago. The official story was that she drowned, her kayak found capsized off the rocky shore. No body, though, just the kayak, bobbing in the shallows like a ghost. The town mourned, held a memorial, and moved on. But Elliot and Clara hadn't. They'd been friends with Lila, or as close as anyone could get to her. She'd confided in them about things, secrets about Havenport, about the people who ran it, about the strange lights she'd seen flickering out at sea late at night. It started with a notebook. Lila had left it at the library, tucked behind a shelf of dusty maritime logs. Clara found it a week after Lila's disappearance, filled with frantic scribbles, coordinates, dates, names. At the top of one page, in bold letters, she'd written, "They're hiding something. It's bigger than all of us." Elliot had been skeptical at first, but then he'd seen the lights too faint, pulsing, out where the horizon met the black water. He'd followed them one night, rowing out in a borrowed dinghy, and what he found made his blood run cold. He wouldn't tell Clara everything, not yet, but enough to convince her they had to act. Now, they were here, on the pier, with a plan that felt half crazy and all dangerous. Clara clutched a small metal box, its surface etched with strange symbols that didn't belong to any language she recognized. Elliot had found it in the shallows near where Lila's kayak washed up. Inside was a single piece of paper with a name, Samuel Drake, the town's mayor, a man whose smile was too wide and whose fishing empire kept Havenport's economy afloat. Everyone loved Samuel, or feared him. It was hard to tell the difference sometimes. "We need proof," Elliot said, his voice steady but laced with something raw. "If we're wrong about him, this blows up in our faces. If we're right—" He trailed off, letting the weight of it hang between them. Clara nodded, her fingers tightening around the box. "Then we owe it to Lila to find out." They moved quickly, slipping through the fog toward the old warehouse at the edge of town, the one Samuel used to store his fishing gear. The building loomed like a shadow, its rusted walls groaning in the wind. The plan was simple: get in, find evidence of whatever Samuel was hiding, and get out before anyone noticed. But simple plans have a way of unraveling. Inside, the air was damp and smelled of salt and decay. The warehouse was a maze of crates and nets, lit only by the faint glow of a lantern Clara carried. They moved silently, guided by Lila's notebook, which had listed this place as the heart of it all. Elliot's heart pounded as they crept deeper, his eyes scanning for anything out of place. That's when he saw Ida trapdoor, half hidden under a pile of tarps, its edges gleaming faintly in the dim light. "Clara," he whispered, pointing. She froze, her breath catching. They exchanged a look, the kind that says there's no turning back, and together they heaved the trapdoor open. A ladder descended into darkness, and a faint hum, like machinery, pulsed from below. Elliot went first, his boots clanging softly on the metal rungs. Clara followed, the lantern casting jagged shadows on the walls. At the bottom, they found a room that didn't belong in a fishing warehouse. It was sterile, almost clinical, with steel tables and shelves lined with glass vials. In the center stood a machine, its surface covered in blinking lights and strange dials. And there, on one of the tables, was a photograph Lila, smiling, unaware she was being watched. Clara's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God," she whispered. "What is this?" Before Elliot could answer, a voice cut through the silence, smooth and cold as the fog outside. "You shouldn't be here." They spun around to see Samuel Drake standing in the doorway, his tall frame blocking their exit. His usual charm was gone, replaced by something hard, predatory. Behind him were two men, burly and silent, their faces unreadable. Elliot stepped in front of Clara, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. "What did you do to Lila, Samuel?" The mayor's lips curled into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Lila was curious. "Like you. She saw things she didn't understand, things that keep this town alive. You think Havenport survives on lobster alone? There's a bigger game here, son, and you're in over your head." Clara's voice trembled but held firm. "What's in those vials? What are you hiding?" Samuel's smile faded. "Progress," he said simply. "The kind that doesn't come cheap. Lila wanted to expose us, but she didn't know the cost. You don't either." The air grew thick with tension, the hum of the machine louder now, almost oppressive. Elliot's mind raced. The vials, the lights at sea, Lila's notebook, it was all connected, but to what? Something illegal, something dangerous. Drugs? Weapons? Or something worse, something they couldn't yet comprehend? One of the men stepped forward, a crowbar in his hand. Elliot grabbed Clara's arm, pulling her toward the ladder, but Samuel raised a hand, and the man stopped. "You can leave," Samuel said, his voice calm but laced with menace. "But you'll keep your mouth shut, or you'll end up like Lila." The words hit like a punch. Elliot's grip tightened on Clara's arm, but she shook him off, stepping forward, her eyes blazing. "You killed her," she said, not a question but an accusation. "And you think you can scare us into silence?" Samuel's eyes narrowed. "You're smart, Clara. Smarter than Lila. Don't make her mistake." The standoff stretched on, seconds feeling like hours. Then, a sound, a low, mechanical groan from the machine. The lights flickered, and for a moment, everyone froze. Clara seized the chance, grabbing a vial from the shelf and smashing it against the floor. A sharp, chemical smell filled the air, and Samuel's face twisted with rage. "Run!" Elliot shouted, shoving Clara toward the ladder. They scrambled up, the men shouting behind them, Samuel's voice rising above the chaos. "You can't hide from this. You'll regret it." They burst out of the warehouse, the fog swallowing them as they ran. The town felt alive now, the mist curling around them like it was watching. They didn't stop until they reached Clara's small apartment above the library, locking the door behind them. Panting, they collapsed onto the floor, the metal box and Lila's notebook still clutched in their hands. "What was that place?" Clara whispered, her voice shaking. "What are they doing?" Elliot shook his head, his mind still reeling. "I don't know. But it's big, Clara. Bigger than us. And they know we know." The next morning, Havenport woke to a new kind of quiet. The fog had lifted, but the town felt heavier, as if it carried the weight of a secret too big to hold. Word spread fast. Elliot and Clara had been seen running from the warehouse, wild-eyed, talking about Samuel Drake in a hidden room. Some believed them. Others called them liars, desperate for attention. Samuel, ever the politician, denied everything, his smile back in place as he stood in the town square, promising to get to the bottom of these rumors. But the whispers grew. Fishermen talked of strange catches in their nets, objects that didn't belong in the sea. Kids swore they saw lights flickering out on the water again. And then there was the notebook, which Clara had hidden in the library's safe. It held answers, but also danger. Every time Elliot and Clara tried to speak out, they felt eyes on them, shadows moving just out of sight. A week later, a package arrived at Clara's door. Inside was a single photograph. Elliot, standing on the pier, taken the night they broke into the warehouse. On the back, in sharp black ink, was one word: stop. They didn't. But they didn't know who to trust, either. Was Samuel acting alone, or was the whole town in on it? And what was the machine, the vials, the lights? The truth was out there, but it was buried deep, and digging it up might cost them everything. What would you do if you were Elliot and Clara? Would you keep pushing, knowing the danger, or would you stay silent to save yourself? Do you think Samuel's hiding something for the good of Havenport, or is it pure greed? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if this story got your heart racing, and subscribe for more stories that'll keep you up at night. What's the real cost of truth, and who's pulling the strings in your town?